No agenda, no takes, and no rules. Social Sessions with Mike Gannotti. And welcome to another edition of Social Sessions. Hi, I'm your host, Michael Gannotti, and today I am joined by Steve Bruno. Steve, welcome to the Social Sessions.
Hey, Mike, thanks a lot for having me. It's been 17 years together in the UC space. You and I, 10 years working together. So I'm calling and talking to you today from my remote office at the beach in Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Wait a minute, you mean you're not at home?
I am not at home. You and I have been working from the home office quite a bit over these years, but certainly it is with the technology we have today. It's very easy for me to do this kind of thing. Take 3 or 4 calls a day, shut the computer down, go out to the beach, and fire the laptop back at night, do a little more work. We're seeing that,
Yeah.
17 years ago, we talked about doing remote and mobile communications for home workers and salespeople. Now we find a situation with COVID where disaster recovery, which used to mean losing an office or losing a data center, now is we need to be able to function as a business, but working from home, 10, 20, 100,000 people in some cases. So, everything we've been preaching these last 15 years has unfortunately come to light as a result of this. But I think that the lessons we've learned along the way have well prepared us for it.
No, I got to agree. I think I've seen a lot of that with customers where they maybe hadn't planned on going this soon to the cloud and doing all these things, but now that it's here and they've moved, it is enabling. And I know we were talking a little bit beforehand just about some of the scenarios, but going back real quickly, so you went from just outside of Atlanta, you're down in Alabama now at the beach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of why you wanted to get away was because what did you personally have going on?
Personally, I had a pretty bad case of the COVID-19. I was laid out for about 3 weeks. So we've been talking about getting away, and finally we were able to actually rent a house down here at the beach. It kind of reminds me of 15, 16 years ago, I actually addressed the MGX conference for Microsoft from a beach house in Hilton Head on Office Communication Server R2, which allowed us to do the conferencing and web sharing. And that was a big deal at the time. Now it's just part of life for me, but now it's part of life for a lot of people. And it's what's keeping me busy these days. And, the analytics and reporting that my company provides around Teams and the reporting that Teams has itself is absolutely showing the trend that people can be extremely productive when working from home. There's no arguing it really anymore. You see people working all day, peaking during the day. The afternoons they may shut down for a little while, but you see people sneaking in at 8, 9 o'clock at night doing a couple hours worth of work while the family's asleep, and then they start their day maybe a half hour later in the day. I think we're going to finally see that culture change that says working from home is not only good for the employee, it's good for the business. It's good for the environment. I know the traffic in Atlanta is a third of what it typically is, and
Sure.
There's no fog, there's no smog, there's good things all around. At least this is the problem with working at the beach house. You do have guests occasionally.
This is not a problem. It's life. It's real life. So you were one of the things that we were talking about was how you've seen some examples recently with all this going on where folks are actually re-looking, not only like you were saying at right now needing to get people at home, but actually, as we move beyond this, starting to rethink some of their thought processes around the whole.
Yeah, it's everywhere I go. I mean, even from just here today, we have a shared pool here at this townhome or a house we rented. Gentleman works in state and local government as an engineer, and he is literally working from here this week. And that's something they had never done. He's out of Ohio. And he's like, we did have a policy where you could work a couple of days, but it was really frowned upon. And now that's how they're going to go. They're going to really, really rethink how people do office time. And, on a personal note, I was on the phone the other day with a customer service person, and I asked her, I said, where are you right now? And she said, well, you wouldn't believe this. I'm working from home. I said, no, I believe it. And we got into the conversation about how that benefited her and how much more productive she was. And also, just from a personal standpoint, I said, listen, would you take a $5,000 pay cut to work from home? And she's like, absolutely. So you're starting to see organizations that culturally had never thought about it, since they've been forced into it, and looking at the data and the analytics that come out of productivity with Teams and Office 365. It's going to be on the forefront of a lot of large companies' minds and what they can do. And if you tie it to the environmental, green initiatives, and maybe even if the government incented it, I think that you'll see a lot of this become mainstream for folks that normally had. Classic examples, law firms. You and I have dealt with major law firms in the past. That is a culture that is in the office 80 hours a week. I have a friend that has a law firm, and he's got all his associates and all his paralegals and everyone working from home right now. And they've got 5 floors in a downtown Atlanta office building that's costing them millions of dollars every year, and they're rethinking it. They're starting to see the value in being collaborative online, and the quality of life aspects of things that you take into effect and you don't take into account. So yeah, it's definitely, unfortunately, we had to kind of learn these lessons through COVID, but it's definitely an exciting time to be in UC for sure.
Yeah, and I think. Can you turn the volume down just a bit?
Mhm.
I'm hearing myself again. But yeah, I mean, to your point about the cost of facilities and stuff, I've seen that recently with Microsoft. We had a big push to start to get away from everybody having dedicated spaces, consolidating, moving to some more, highly developed but limited shared spaces where people, when they did need to come in, could come in and utilize the space. But then I've been working from home, like you said, for the last number of years. And for customers, that was kind of a foreign concept, but because of everything that's gone on, really, they're saying, hey, people are productive. They are online. They're doing things. They're getting work done. And it's not all roles can do this and all the time. But at the same token, the needs for the physical spaces of the past that were given, huge buildings and complexes and all the money that just dumps into that, that's huge cost. That's real world cost savings that can be.
I mean, if you can tie the 3 things together, good for the business because people are more productive, cost savings, both maybe in employee pay, but also in physical space and environmental impact. You've got the makings of something that's going to change. I would not want to be selling office space for the next 3-4 years. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that changes. For me personally, though, you mentioned the huddle spaces and landing spaces. That's driven a lot by device types too. I mean, everybody's moved to laptops over the last 15 years. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't have a laptop per se, but the physical devices as well, like from Poly, the studio. My home office has got better video conferencing equipment than you might find in a lot of companies these days. Certainly the trend has been to get away from the big multi-million-dollar immersive telepresence and into affordable huddle room spaces for collaboration. And the devices that are available out there from whatever companies are certainly adjusting to that, and the cost for that is coming down. So the home office does not need to be neglected either.
No, like you're saying, I've got my little setup here. I've got a 4K camera. I've got my little fancy schmancy mic, more for looks than anything else. But it's that idea that, hey, you can start to really fix these up. And then going back to some of what you were saying too, not only is the person more productive, but also helping a person to have a better work-life balance, better health balance. Like I get up, my grandson was over this morning. His mom is pregnant, so she had to go in to see the doctor. And I was in breaks in between, and I got up and I walked out and I played and, hey, how are you? He's 2.5 and had a ball with him, but then came in, and it just helps you mentally, emotionally, physically. There's a whole different aspect to working from home.
Absolutely. I'll personally chime in on that. I mean, the amount of cooking that has occurred in the last month and a half, 2 months of cooked home family meals, that didn't happen before because there was a hour and a half commute. For me, it might have been getting off of an airplane and just getting back to my house after a week. I'll say that personally, not getting on an airplane anymore is not a problem for me. And I think that we're going to see that impact the travel business. I think travel will be really focused around personal vacations and not so much corporate travel. And again, there's another huge cost savings. I'm absolutely certain there's accountants somewhere looking at the travel budgets for next year and going, hey, we don't have those anymore. How can we better invest that in the business? Again, another outcome that's great. But yeah, I think being home, I mean, for me, that gives me some normalcy. Not that I could run to the gym right now, certainly, but when gyms do open up again, not having to commute to an office in the morning, you suddenly can come back home and throw on a nice shirt. If you saw, I'm wearing swim trunks underneath here right now. The pool's waiting for me afterwards,
Yeah.
right? But had I not told you that, you might not have known. So it's look, when I did my first right-click call off of Office Communication Server out of a presence bubble, I knew, and I used to call it 3 clicks to collaboration. I knew that the world would change. And, I got involved in the Microsoft space right there and then. We were one of the first original 15 partners in the world when I worked for my company that did services around OCS. And we would go out there and preach the UC gospel. And what you found was there were cultures that just didn't adapt to it, but there were certain cultures that did. Certainly sales forces and consulting, customer service to some extent went mobile. But I think we're going to see the mainstreaming of information workers working from home. Absolutely. And it'll be good, like I said, on all those aspects of cost, environment, quality of life, family life, you name it. It's good. Plus, who wants to drive out when it's raining or snowing? And again, businesses have learned disaster recovery has a whole new definition as of this last thing. So I don't know, Mike. The future looks bright for those of us that work in this space. That's for sure.
I think so. But speaking of this space, then, as we look at what you've been up to professionally, right, kind of switching gears, and we've been talking a lot about what people are doing, but top of mind for you now in your role at your org, as you think about the customers that you're working with and the things that they're struggling with and trying to get their heads around, what's top of mind for you these days?
Well, a lot of these companies and organizations that I'm dealing with went from maybe a couple of hundred people that were working from home or remotely, even using Teams at that point, or Skype. And the reality is that some of them have gone from that to 10,000, 20, 30, 50, even 100,000 users.
Mm-hmm.
And so like any IT organization, whenever you do something in a hurry, and much credit to Microsoft on, I think you guys doubled or tripled the capacity of Office 365
It's a lot more than that.
I mean, that's a project that's impressive. I think that I'd be interested to see the takeaways from learning from that.
Sure.
But to that point, a lot of these companies have also done it, and they were not ready to manage users. And we have a product, a code that allows companies to really get their heads around the data and the analytics of what productivity looks like, what quality call service looks like, what kind of devices are in use. Everything you need to really manage a remote and on-premise deployment, and give you the data, the analytics that show that, hey, this is working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft is doing some studies out there and some reporting as well, but the productivity numbers are in and it works. And now we just need to make a business case for that. And I think with what we've gone through over the last year or 3 months is going to help in quite a way. It will no longer be sufficient to just have operations be contained to a physical building. People will need to leave and need to work remotely and be productive. And even in healthcare, you see this. Although the frontline folks are there, all this insurance and the payees and everything, they're all working from home right now. And I'll bet that's probably for a lot of them the first time. So exciting times in UC. I have one friend I think back to that is a hardliner that will never, ever, ever want to do video conferencing. But she's kind of alone in this day and age, and she's having to deal with it right now as well. So I'm thinking about her right now because she was like, I'll never do this stuff. It works.
It does. And, touching on one of the things that you just said about, like with healthcare, the payers and some of the others, maybe not the frontline workers, even that, I got to tell you, is starting to change because, one of the big impetuses we had when all this came out was establishing virtual visits. And when you're doing that kind of virtual triaging remote, it doesn't matter where the clinic, you're looking over, people over here. Doesn't matter where that clinician is, right? They can be in the hospital, they could be at home. My daughter-in-law, who did go in today physically, they've sent some equipment to her home, a cuff and some other things, so that for the most part, most of her visits with her physician as part of her pregnancy, it's at home. And that
Yeah.
physician doesn't have to
And
be
yeah,
in
we
a
can touch
doctor's
on
office.
education, right? I mean, education, all of our kids have been taking classes from home the last
Yeah,
3 months. My daughter at FSU has been doing Teams meetings.
yeah,
Again, I think that world started a little early on with the products to get online education going, but I don't think
yeah.
that the video and the collaboration component was ever fully baked until now. And now we see, I mean, I know one school district that put out 3,000 devices very quickly in short order,
Yeah.
spinning up Windows Virtual Desktop and Active Directory and Teams, and away they go.
Mhm.
Um, I think a lot of parents are excited to send their kids back to a school, but
Yeah.
but that said, again, we have a scenario here where what does this mean for college education, right? Do all courses need to be in person, or can you teach these classes remotely and stop building brick and mortar, which is the expensive part of delivery of education in the first place? That
Well,
and the
and even
professors.
as they look to, expand their reach, right, beyond the brick, I mean, they may still have brick and mortar, but if they want to, increase their scope, having that online component. I know my daughter, hers started officially today, but last night she was on getting a jump start on the first assignment for school.
I'm making a move.
You're making the
It's a little
move.
noisy.
It's
It got
all
a little
good.
noisy down here.
See, this is real life right here, working remote, right?
Absolutely. Hang on a sec.
All good. It's all good.
That's the one thing. I think there's a lot of etiquette that's coming out there in terms of learning how to do a proper video
Yeah.
conference when you live in a crowded house. Dogs become part of the whole thing.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Dogs, kids. They had that one video that went viral well before this, with a gentleman who, I think he was in government, and he had a child come running in, and that was famous. But now, how many people have similar stories, right? That's a
well, they're
dime.
definitely showing up on all the social media and the streaming sites because they're
Yeah.
worth a good laugh. But I mean, again, this is a brave new world for a lot of folks. They've never had to even consider things like that. Whereas, for you and I, although a little ill prepared just now with
No,
10
no, that
beach
was
house
good.
guests.
It's all good because it's real life, right? You're at the
Exactly.
beach.
Yeah.
People are going in and out. They're mixing drinks, but you're
It
being
is.
productive. And when you're done with this, you're heading to the pool.
I am done for the day. You were standing between me and the beach, but I am actually very
So
happy to be part of this conversation.
you did have
Because,
something you wanted to share.
huh?
I know. You had said there was something you wanted to share to kind of talk to real quick.
Oh, about what Code's doing in this space,
Yeah,
or
what you're up to these days? What you guys are up to?
gosh, I mean, I've been a journeyman in this space, going from Microsoft to service providers that were deploying the service to, the early days of the Skype room systems, which that introduced the annotation capabilities of presenting and writing on content and
Yeah.
sharing that content to everyone. I've been a journeyman in this space, but I have to say that right now, I like where I'm at, that I am showing, really kind of cementing the value of what unified communications is. I mean, we understood it, like I said earlier, from the very beginning, that this was going to be a game changer in terms of how people could be productive. But now with the numbers of people actually doing it and being able to put data and analytics around it and show productivity and show success and show that a good solid internet connection is quality enough to make a phone call and get work done. That's why I joined Code Software earlier this year. And, I had no idea when I first started talking that we'd be going through the COVID-19 thing, but look, personally, we're seeing robust adoption of this technology. And again, it's software as a service. It's built into Azure. It is absolutely, I can have customers, and I do have customers getting up on it as quickly as a day and suddenly having visibility into all their call details, any call challenges they've got. Is the person using a properly certified device? Which I find humorous when I think about my college kids and college folks on Teams. I can guarantee that every college student is not using a proper certified Microsoft device for Teams. They're using whatever they've got. But for the corporate world, certainly you see the adoption of these devices, headsets, and not everybody wants a headset, right? Speaker phones, video conference speaker phones, whatever your choice is, whatever fits your lifestyle. You get your office built out and you can be very productive working from home. And again, when you're done, you're done. So it's exciting to be a part of Code and what they're doing, what they're revealing in terms of the business case for truly doing this. And we'll be there to support any Microsoft customer that wants to really delve into what the success ratio is of their UC deployment.
So last, kind of to wrap it up, as you look at what you're doing, because I know you're expanding some of what the analytics and things that you're bringing back, what can they expect if they wanted to, talk to Steve Bruno, if they want to talk Code and see what is it that you provide today?
Absolutely. Visibility to your entire UC deployment. And the company started off in the early days as just doing a common call reporting, right? Because you had very high costs for long distance and whatever. They purpose-built this solution 6 years ago because the challenges of adding video and collaboration and instant messaging and all the different tools you have, it just didn't fit that model. So they stepped back and purpose-built a solution that lets you have a single pane of glass to the operation, the management, and the productivity reporting that you're trying to see is the success of any UC investment. And our customers that have just rapidly thrown out 50,000 users are plugging this solution in and getting visibility that they didn't have before. Call detail reporting in Teams is good, but we've got about a 6-year head start on massaging that data and sectioning it off for quality reporting. Plus the real-time API that's forthcoming will be able to do dashboards for your NOC. And
nice.
Folks that look at the product realize that they have visibility now to things that they had to go to several other places to do. And now that you've got 50, 100,000 people out there, how do I manage it? It wasn't thought of before. And so business processes are being invented in real time, and Code's Klaba product is there to facilitate that process. So that's what they get out of a conversation with me. A little nerdy, but certainly anyone that's ever managed a voice deployment with Skype or OCS or Teams knows that these tools are invaluable.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for joining us. So last thing, if somebody wants to get into contact with you, they want to find out more about analytics, what should they be doing?
Certainly they can reach out to steven.bruno@codesoftware.net, or you can find us on LinkedIn, find us on our page, or codesoftware.net, www, the old-fashioned way. Yes, absolutely be willing to talk to folks. We're doing free pilots for 30 days to make sure that the product works within their environment and they get the data they're looking for. We make people successful with that data. So,
well, I don't want to hold you any longer. I can hear the waves rolling, the pool is splashing. So thank you, Steve, for joining us today.
Mike, thanks for having me. It's great seeing you again. Great reconnecting with you last week.
You as well. And for everybody who joined us today and who's listened in, I want to thank you. Until next time with another edition of Social Sessions, this is Mike Gannotti with
Steve Bruno. Take care.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.